While there's no question that I believe with all of my study, all of my experience, that love thy neighbor was not only another precept, but was the precept. And that's what all this is about. Not a question of getting closer to God, but making yourself aligned with God, making yourself similar to God, to act like God.
Yedid nefesh avarahama.
I actually met the Rav when I was 17 years old. I was in school, I was looking for something part-time. For whatever reason, I found my way to his place, his office, and I worked for the Rav. I wasn't very enamored by him, because in those days the Rav was a business person, and he had many political contacts. He always had some kind of power. When I met him, I didn't particularly like that. I didn't understand it. I couldn't figure out how somebody that could be that religious could also be that involved in the business world. I didn't know how it gelled together. And I wasn't particularly crazy about it as a person in those days, because he was a hardhead. He was forced to be reckoned with even then. When I finished school, I went on to something else, and I was already married. I had my children at 18. And 9 years later, we met again. Then when we finally came back together again, I found a different person, somebody more personable, somebody more real, somebody more sensitive, somebody trying to find who they really were. That's what I fell for. I fell for the person, the humanity that he had become to be. And the Rav is in those days, I call him the Rav, but in those days, he had no intentions of being a Rav, Then he had no intentions of anything but just learning Kabbalah, which he did with his teacher, until his teacher passed away.
I have to admit, you all see me today, but many years ago, that wasn't the person you see today. I did not know what it meant to truly love. I didn't know what it meant. And when I met my teacher and I saw a few of his writings, I heard a word that I'd never known before. The word zulat. To love unconditionally. Love unconditionally. What does that mean? I had no idea. And in that short period, unfortunately, it was only 7 years that we knew each other, although he has never left me for one day. Since that fateful day in '69, never left me since. I came to the realization, it was that simple, that if there was a bullet coming at my teacher, I would stand in front of it without a hesitation. He taught me what was love. But then I realized that was not even the reason. I should say, he did not teach me love. I saw love. The reason why I had to learn love, you might say, well, that is what Kabbalah is all about. And it is. It's nothing more. Yes, we have all these channels, names, and whatever practices that we conduct here at the center. But the ultimate of all of it, it's nothing more than love. And then a few weeks after he passed away, Karen and I, who had known each other for close to 11 years before, suddenly here we were. And I realized that if I had not understood love, we could never make it. She is full of love by nature. That was not my character. And so for this to succeed, there was that one important lesson. The one important lesson that I thank you all for your expression this evening, to Karen and I. And all I can say is I hope that I shall never divert from the meaning of true love. And I thank you for teaching me that way, despite the fact that I am a Leo. God bless you all.
Misho Avedecha.
My mother met the Rav for the first time. She looked at him and she told me, she says, you know what? You need a shrink. That's what you need. Not a rabbi, a shrink. You definitely, what are you going to do with this guy? Where does he come to you? How are you going to do this? Everybody said the same thing. Even his friends. We had a dear friend who passed away a few years back. And he said, Karen, you're crazy. This will never work. I says, why do you say it won't work? He said, because it's too religious for you. You can't live that life. You won't be able to breathe. You'll be blocked. You'll be in this. I said, no, I won't. Trust me, I won't. It's not going to happen that way. He says, okay, I'm just telling you, it's not going to be simple. Usually, when the two people inside have perfect harmony, but outside is like crazy and it's difficult, chances are it's a soulmate marriage. Because for us to be together was what they called it impossible. Age, education, culture, everything that there could be was against it. Absolutely. And it was for me, the most important thing was that we had each other. When we lived in Israel, there were no such thing as movie theaters or shows. There wasn't any of that. So it was a blessed life because we had those years by ourselves together with the children. I mean, there wasn't going out to dinner, There wasn't babysitters and go have yourself. First of all, there were no babysitters. Second of all, there was no place to go. We were pretty much isolated, just us. Those were wonderful years. Those were really special, wonderful years. Most people are in love for 5 years, 3 years. And then marriage sort of feels like a soft, shoe that you're very comfortable with. And it becomes something nice. It becomes a relationship between friends and stuff. And we loved each other for 40 years. Really. We'd fight, we'd be angry and all that, but to the Rav, I was the eyes in his head. Always. If I left and when the Rav was well, we were never separated. We were always together. And even if I chose to go someplace, where are you going? When are you coming back? What time are you going to be there? Where, what do you mean you're going? What about me? Kind of a thing. And it was something that is very rare in this world. Because most people have someone that they care about, but love, real, truly love, somebody that would stand in front of a bullet for somebody else. It's very rare, and we had that.
The end of the road is that there ain't nobody like the Rav. And I'm blessed to have this man beside me for all these years. God made him where he is, in the place that he is, so that he should be part of all of us.
All I want to say is that you left out one point, that the Creator didn't create me, and everything you had to say about me is because you created it. Thank you. Thank you all.
I've changed a great deal. And probably I did too in many ways. We grew a lot together. A lot. I mean, for me, it was a difficult challenge. For me, the challenge was to learn Hebrew as a language, to be able to learn the different coded prayers, the way of life that I had no idea. And all the other things, that was my personal journey to become who I am. For him, it was to become that different type of a spiritual being. Because the knowledge, as he's received it from Rabbi Brandwein, was, matter of fact, this is the way it is, it goes into this box, and if you understand it, good. If you don't understand it, well, understand it next week, over and over again. That's the type of study that they did. They didn't correlate it to life. They didn't make it a part of the system. When I came on the scene and I said to him, I don't understand, explain to me. When he started to explain, I says, but don't you see that makes a difference? Those explanations make a difference. You can show me on paper, I can understand, but how do I eat it? How do I make it a part of my life? And that's where we started, with these conversations, to create the different parts of the center that of course never existed before that. Sometimes were very, very difficult for us. Because what he had to do was far more difficult in a way than what I had to do. Because he was part of a society. All these rabbis were part of his society. All of them knew him. And now, because of me, because of our relationship, he would not be accepted anymore in those circles. He grew from the experience because he had to, he was a Leo. And at the beginning it was very difficult because from becoming where he was to becoming where he needed to be was his choice. His ego was crushed a little bit at that point. But from that he grew to be able to allow us to do what we do today. Can you imagine somebody from that type of a culture, totally black hole, okay, creating classes where men and women of all different religions can come to learn? This is like a miracle that a person can be that open. But he became that way. Yeah, he got bent like steel, but he bent. And he opened and created a place that people would come and respect that part of it. And at the beginning it was terrible because people hated us for what we did. Certainly the religious community didn't comprehend it, rightfully so. I wouldn't understand either. At the beginning I said, we don't fit into any box. We have a box, which is great for me because I don't like boxes. For him to stand and do what he did was a very difficult move. And it opened up a whole different channel. Like if you look today, you'll find so many more people are open to all different alternative ways of life, all different types of spiritualities, which didn't exist in our time. Okay? He was the first one to say, this is the way it's going to be. You like it, join me. And he changed in his own personality. He became soft. He became more gentle. He was always soft and gentle with the boys, with the kids. But the outside world found him to be ill.
Definitely became much softer. Less sort of dogmatically religious. Growing up, the Rav is very, very, I guess the word would be orthodox. I often tell this, but it's really an amazing and inspiring part of our lives from a very young age. Obviously, the Rav and Shabbat would give us blessings. But then, both with us and when we started having kids, the Rav would come over all the time. Sometimes at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes without us even knowing. I remember when we lived in New York, especially on Shabbat, the Rav would come over. The Rav would just walk into our apartment, go and give a blessing to the kids. At the time, I think it was only David. And then we would wake up maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on a Shabbat morning, and the Rav's hands over our heads. An expression both of love and of care. It's interesting, those who've had, if you've ever noticed, the Rav's hands were very, very soft. But I'll never forget the feeling of the Rav's hands on your head when he's giving you a blessing, because that softness wasn't clearly just a physical softness, but a spiritual, tremendous care. Who would, when we lived here in LA, and the Rav sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning drive from his house to our house to give us a blessing, because that's the most powerful time in the middle of the night to give either to us or to our kids blessings. And you'd often find with, I'd say, the tougher people, the Rav was tough, but you'd also often see the Rav with, I don't know if the word is weaker, but softer students, tremendous love and care and patience.
The Rav for us is the symbol of everything that the Center has become, and the root of everything that was, and Bezrat Hashem, of everything that will be. Come thick or thin, there is nobody like you in the world. What you have done has created more evolvement of life. You have made lives. You have created people to live differently than they did before. The people that walk in and be a part of what you've created don't walk out the same, whether it's for a day, a year, or for the rest of their lives. And for that, someplace upstairs, I'm sure they know that you have done something that nobody in the world has ever done.
And one of the things I often think about is the Rav's sense of humor. Really, the Rav really enjoyed funny things, really enjoyed laughing. I remember one of the Rav's favorite TV shows was The Honeymooners. And when we lived in New York, whenever it came on, the Rav would stop and watch it. There are a few things that's magical as the Rav's smile. I really enjoyed hearing the Rav laugh as well, but there were times when the Rav would have a smile. So that's for me, was a very big part of the Rav that not many people had the opportunity to experience. I'm not sure everybody knows, the Rav loved Westerns.
He loved, well, even when the boys were little, he would tell them, like John Wayne stories and his white horse Silver.
Growing up, the Rav would tell the stories. We used to call them Shragi stories. The Rav's Hebrew name is Shragafaivel, and he would call them Shragi stories. And I remember from a very, very young age and progressively on, I'm not sure when we realized that most of them were made up, but maybe one of the moments when I realized that most of them were made up, the Rav, I don't think I ever remember seeing the Rav on a horse, but he would tell stories about having a horse now called Silver, which I, in retrospect, realized was the name of the Lone Ranger, but I didn't know it at the time. And how he would go up to his uncle in upstate New York during the summers, and he would ride his horse, and he would tell us stories about his parents, the way his mother, he would tell us that when he came home from school, he lived in Williamsburg, grew up in Williamsburg, and he went to school not that far away from their house, and his mom would always have chocolate and milk ready for him when he would come home. He always viewed his mother, Esther, we would call her Bobby Esther, as a very, very righteous person. He related once that she would say the whole book of Psalms of Tehillim on every Shabbat afternoon. That's how she would spend her time. The Rav, as I said, he would not sleep and was always exhausted. And the Rav would give the Tehillim classes early mornings. And I remember I often would ask the Rav the question. He was very tired, and we would study with the Rav before, and then the Rav would prepare a cup of tea and go down to give the class on the first floor. So I said to the Rav once, I remember very clearly, I said, when are you going to sleep? When are you going to... And the Rav said, my mother told me, when you leave this world is when you get to rest. And that was always true about the Rav.
The Rav, when he, even in front of people, if he had what to say, God bless him, he said it, regardless of who liked it and who didn't like it. And he could do things that I I don't know how to do.
He knew that he had a mission and he was going to do it regardless of the consequences. Often if you would tell the Rav, this person might not be ready to hear this thing, the Rav would almost definitely say it then. Countless times we'd be sitting at a table with the Rav and a new student, a quote-unquote important student, and the Rav could care less who the person is. If the Rav felt that a message had to be given, the message was given, and often the people never came back, but the Rav didn't care because he had a message to bring to this world.
I've seen on many occasions that the Rav had done things with people, and I always said, gee, why are you doing that, The end result was normally, that's what they needed at the moment.
It's a tremendously inspiring trait to be able to know, I need to do what I need to do, and whether people will love me for it or hate me for it, it makes no difference, as long as I'm true to what the Creator put me into this world.
As you probably know, the Rav had a stroke many years ago. And after the stroke, the doctors told everybody, mainly the family, of course, that the Rav would not be able to function ever again, wouldn't be able to walk, talk, because this whole part of the Rav's brain was just gone. And of course, the Rav ended up walking and talking and going on with the Rav's life. Not in 100% capacity, but at a high level. So I was doing mikvah with the Rav one day, and we were chatting, and I thought I would ask the Rav how the Rav accomplished that feat. And the Rav said, very simple. He said, take a lemon from the lemon tree. The same DNA that's in that lemon is in the leaf of the lemon tree. It's no different. You have the fruit, you have the leaf. The Rav said, I just went and reprogrammed my body somewhere else in the body.
My whole being, my whole purpose is to finally take Kabbalah out of the closet. And I don't want to leave it in the closet so someone else will come around, maybe in 2 generations, 10 generations, if ever, and take it out of the closet. I said, my destiny is to take Kabbalah to its rightful place. It's been long enough that the world has considered Kabbalah something that has to be kept away from the masses. That Kabbalah should be concealed, hidden, and all of the other limitations that are not placed on any other study, on any other area of education except Kabbalah. What do we have to do down here to change everything from where it is now, from its chaotic state, that people recognize it as chaotic state and turn it into a wonderful, beautiful world? Each person will learn for himself. There is no rule what each person has to do. You get to a certain point in life where the Ari said that you have to find out why you're here. Why am I here? Please tell me, what is my purpose here? We all didn't come here just to watch a nice movie. We all came here for a very specific purpose. Everything is here for a purpose of helping someone else, something else, to add a little more benefit to the world, more so than when before I came into it. And you get to recognize it sooner than later. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful that should be done as quickly as possible. And people have to recognize, they have to start asking, please let me know why I came back here. People go through life thinking that that's not a question we have to ask or should ask. And the answer is, we must ask that question.
I think first of all, the Chabad and the centers are his legacy, his writings, of course his children. our legacy. But I think the greatest legacy is that he brought the spirituality of Kabbalah to the world in masses. Rabbi Ashlag had 5 people, like Brandwein maybe had 10 people. All the tzaddikim, the righteous that were in the study of Kabbalah, didn't or wasn't allowed the era where it could be presented to the peoples of the world.
Rav would always say, it's all about the Zohar, it's all about the Zohar. Finding new ways to disseminate, to teach, to bring this light to the world. How many people in this world, forget about whether they completely believe it or not, forget about whether we can accomplish it in the really near future, but how many people in the world have as their goal that they believe that they can bring about an end to pain, suffering, and death? And with the Rav, you knew that he completely believed it. Everything else that the Rav did and everything else that is the Rav's legacy was all predicated on that knowledge.
To find a spiritual tool that can alter the souls of people, that can open the eyes of people, that can make their life better. It isn't just a single thing, but millions of sparks of light can change because he existed.
The Rav said, something is happening. Do you want to be a part of it? Which is an interesting way to put it. But that certainty, conviction in this idea, for me, is maybe the Rav's most important legacy.
In the years since, before the Rav, during the stroke period, I mean, we opened Sao Paulo, we opened Mexico, we opened Russia, we opened so many different huge spaces, pathways to bring this knowledge more and more to the people. And that's his legacy. Everything that we do, every book that we write, every person that learns, every place that comes, everyone that comes into this place, this cone of knowledge, wherever it might be in the world, is part of his legacy. Because as it was Rabbi Shimon, as it was Rabbi Ashlag, as it was Rabbi Brandwein, as it was the Rav. And the Rav, for our world, is the place where we get our energy from, okay? He was that place for the common people to be able to open their minds and hearts to the teachings of Kabbalah. And that is what he's given us, allowed us to do. Those are the gates that he knocked out enough to open. Each person that shows somebody else in an English Zohar, which didn't exist before a time, a different passage, and they learn from that is part of it. Because the word legacy for me means, how do I create more goodie points, if you will? How do I create more sparks upstairs that can enhance the Rav? And every time somebody learns, either from a book that he's written, or from a book that was written, or from the Chayil, whatever it is, that they have taken something out of it, those people are part of the legacy of the Rav. So too with the generation that will follow. And after that, because what he had done, no one had done before. And therefore, that it exists and people draw from that. It's like a constant stream. And all of us are being satiated by that stream. And by so being the sole source of that, it is part of his legacy.
I'm not here to say we are not part of the team that will bring Mashiach in our day. But we have to be strong, and we have to take on the challenge. If no one else will do it, then the task is left for us. But if there's anything that I can do to say I promise that I will not falter, I will not hesitate, as I haven't done so for the past 50 years, and I will do everything in my power, in my soul, to make good on that promise. Infinity. But whatever it may be, this thought will never leave me, that I don't want to say goodbye to any of you, and certainly not my own family. But I can't do the job alone. It was never meant to be done alone.